Watch out in the crowd. It's coming your way. Bang, bang, 6-6. Fabulous innings, fabulous game. Fantastic tournament.
Mark Keohane. 92. It started. The misery of our semi-final exits. 99, we tied with Australia. 2007, Australia again. Then it was Pakistan, 2009. India, 2014. New Zealand a year later. And then last year, it was those damn Aussies again. Finally, we've made it through to the final of the ICC World Cup.
And we didn't even have to play Australia.
We didn't have to play
That's
Australia.
the key, okay? That's the key. I remember us speaking earlier near the start of the World Cup, and I made the point that finally we were in yellow and they were in green.
Right? It was like a throwaway line, but now
It's like, hang on a second, we've been getting this thing wrong all the time, that if we just pitched up in predominantly gold and green, and they came with their green, they would suffer the same fate as us. Like, just losing a game they shouldn't have, kind of collapsing in the next game and going home before the semi-finals. I see Rohit was asked, like, what's the most positive thing that you guys can take? He said that Australia have gone home. Before the semi-final. Said, why do you say that? He said, because if they're here, they tend to win it every time.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, I go back to, I was saying to our wonderful videographer, Imad, I asked him how old he was. He said 30. I said, well, you won't know the pain of 32 years ago. Okay, you weren't born yet.
Oh, of course.
I mean, that tournament just started with Alan Donald getting out Marsh with the first ball, and Nick that could have gone down to third man, and I think it was Randall, the umpire, was unmoved. I was like, no. And we ended up beating Australia. I think back in the day, I think we chased down 150 to win it for one, and I think we got it in the 48th over. Kepler Wessels and Kirsten batted it out. I mean, the strike rates weren't a thing back then. But then that duck with Lewis, we had 22 runs, 7 balls.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, you rest in peace. I hope you take the system with you.
Yeah.
And it went down to that one ball and just the rain and the tears and that kind of stuff. And then 99, I was actually working with the sports shift at Cape Talk, and we were doing the live commentary through that last over. And I mean, Pollock and Donald had bowled so magnificently to get us in that position. Herschel Gibbs got us a good start. So Shane Warne produced a ripper. But it was like Klusener hit those 2 fours preceding over. It was like, it's there. It's not in doubt. And we can take the 4 balls to get it. And, you know, I still love Alan Donald bowling, and was one of my favorites growing up. And I just feel for that, okay. So then to be run out in that way. So that was that heartache.
Yeah.
Then 2007, the Caribbean, when we decided we were going to play attacking cricket in the semi-final. I think Sean Tate destroyed it. Brave cricket, yeah. Like dance on the wicket and have a swing.
Yeah.
And then obviously the one that probably hurt the most was the one at Eden Park against New Zealand, because we were cruising in that game and the rain came again. And then to see Grant Elliott, what's he saying, Stithians, old lion, to hit our greatest bowler, Dale Steyn, for a 12.
After doing very little in that tournament to that point.
I mean, I think Steyn like 9.4 overs, 0 for 76, or 1 for 76. But how cruel that it would happen to our greatest bowler.
Yeah.
And the adopted Kiwi. But yeah, and I mean, just the things that happened in that game with Vern Philander, his selection and the controversy around it, and then the rain coming. And then so that's the one I had the expectation for. 2007, we had expectation. 99, we were the best team in the world, without a doubt, ODI.
Yeah.
And 92, it was just the romance of us being there, and wow, we actually going to make it through to the final. The others, there wasn't any expectation, so it wasn't really crushing. Even when we went out in the semi-final last year to Australia, it was like, geez, we've done well to get here.
Yeah.
But this one, again, no expectation. But as we've spoken, as the event has grown and grown, it's like, hang on a second, could this be it? And then Afghanistan never beaten us. It's the one team they've never beaten. They've knocked over Australia. They've knocked over New Zealand. They beat Bangladesh. It's like when people were saying, hey, we mustn't underestimate these guys. Did you guys just watch a couple of days ago against Australia? They can play.
Yeah.
Top wicket taker, Faruqi.
They've got one and three in the rankings.
1 and 3, and so they had the top run scorer.
Yeah.
They had Faruqi, and then obviously Khan, 1 and 3, 17 wickets they would end off with now, and it was 16-14 going into it. So they were the top performers in terms of a go-to batsman and a bowling side. Jonathan Trott coaching them, I think Dwayne Bravo there. They're a good. They had nothing to lose. We had everything to lose.
You see, Andrew Patik was in the dugout there as well. So some South African connection.
Completely. And had they done something remarkable, we would have claimed that. That's what we've been talking about now. But yeah, I'm going to really look forward to next week. Not getting up at 2:30 and feeling all bleary-eyed. But geez, what an amazing result today in the context of this team, this tournament, and everything we've been speaking about for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and the standout thing for me is something that you touched on earlier on. They've just been quietly chugging away. We've tracked their progress throughout the tournament, and people underestimated what it took to get out of our pool even unbeaten in the context of those tricky wickets in New York. And then, when they went to the West Indies, we spoke about this being a more traditional like T20, more traditional like T20 surfaces. And it's proved anything but that. The most traditional of them probably came in our game against the USA. We got 190 and change there, or 187, I can't remember, but we posted a good score. And that was the best of them. And then, I've seen post-match Jonathan Trott having a little bit of a moan about the wicket, and I think that's justifiable. It was a tough wicket. But set that aside, when we trace this team's progress over the years, or the heartbreak that we've experienced over the years, and you look at the quality of Proteas teams that have gone out at those stages. This one, I would argue, perhaps doesn't stand up in talent in comparison, but they've got something about them that they've got temperament, and I write often that talent is nothing without the temperament to make that talent soar and make that talent real. And this side has both. And we're going to speak about the final a little bit in forecast to that, but this team is really special in a way that isn't based purely on talent alone.
I think also, and regardless of what happens in the final, obviously we want and hope that they do win, whether they play the Windies or they play England. At the time of us chatting now, that game hadn't started yet. But you're playing either the best T20 exponents in the world in India, or you're playing the defending champions.
Yeah.
So you've got to play bloody well and have a bit of luck on your side to win that in any case. But what this has done is it's removed that you haven't made it past the semi-final, so that's now gone. It's also kind of restored a faith in the quality of South African player. It's really put the SA20 up at the forefront of, since the introduction of that into our calendar, there's been a lot of improvement with our players.
Yeah.
It's not just IPL focused. The understated manner, and you talk about temperament, a team tends to play with the composure of their leader. So if you look at the All Blacks under Richie McCaw, that dominant period, the discipline that there was to that side, how understated they were. If you look at Sia, how extravagant he is in terms of freedom of expression, and he got those Boks to come out of their shell and be a far more flamboyant team in terms of personality and that,
right,
which then improved their game as well.
Yeah.
Then you take a guy like Vrede and Mark Keohane, who is so considered and so understated, and he leads like he bats. And I go back to his 4-day batting, 5-day batting, his first-class cricketer, a guy who would build in innings, be composed, but then could take 15, 20 off and over.
Yeah.
And when he does get going in T20s or ODIs, just he can put on a masterclass, but kind of reads the situation so well. And we've spoken about this so often throughout the whole competition, is just his bowling changes, the way he's read a situation, his ability to immediately say, we need something better. So they went straight up with Maharaj, 1 over, and that's it.
Yeah.
We want the quicks on now.
Yeah.
And the way he used the quicks, and it was like, they're going to do the job. And then knowing, and we've spoken about Shamsi being a killer, attacking wicket taker. It's like mop this tail up quickly, and he did it. 1.5 overs, 3 wickets for 6 runs. I mean, and then KG, just a captain getting and having that feel for his main strike bowler, giving him the ball and saying, do something special today. And as Dale Steyn said, when he cares, he pitches up to 2 wickets and 4 dot balls in your opening over, and he castled both of them. It was vintage South Africa, but not arrogant South Africa.
It's one thing on Rabada, it's one thing cleaning a tail up. It's another thing being the go-to man to get the opposition's best batters out at a World Cup. Those two are completely different things. And I think Rabada, certainly in this tournament, has embraced that challenge from Markram. I think quietly, Markram has probably had a way of motivating Rabada, maybe in ways that previous coaches or captains weren't able to. And that's not a slight on previous coaches or captains. It's just it's a compliment to Markram. And and then we speak about the how quickly he's able to assess conditions and to make the right calls to suit those conditions. But then when he came into bat, there was an interesting subplot for me because there's no question that he struggled in the tournament. There's so much of the talk has been around Markram averaging 13 or 16 or whatever he does in the tournament. But so that was an interesting subplot when he came in, and I saw the way the ball was going around. I mean, Kwani copped one in the ribs that the way it just spat off the wicket into his ribs just before he got out. I was like, okay, 50 should be gettable, but this is the type of wicket where you don't want to be chasing 80 to 100. And the way Markram played when he came in, a hybrid of control and aggression, and he got some luck. I mean, he nicked off and they didn't refer it, and it's the type of luck you need when you struggling in that way. And so much of the plaudits will go to our bowlers. But Markram's innings and what Riza Hendricks done was immense for me in the context of their World Cup struggles. I wrote in a column that I posted after the game that it's maybe not the wicket that Hendricks wanted, but it's the wicket that he needed. And what I meant by that is the way it forced him to train his focus to be technically excellent, because any technical flaw would be exploited on a wicket like that, was remarkable. And so big ups to those two.
But also on that, Quinny gets out. I think Quinny had free license, go for it. And if it comes off, this game's over in 4 overs.
Right.
If it doesn't, maybe you've got us 5 or 10 runs that are going to be invaluable.
Yeah.
So I understood the way he played and the kind of shot that he played as well. But then you look 9 for 1 going into the 5th over. It starts getting a little bit. I don't know, the second, these guys may have a bit of belief.
Yeah.
And then that big over, they took it to 25 for 1. That was the game.
Yeah.
It's again the controlled batting, a couple of boundaries. And you could just see the confidence in Riza grow, but without a strut. It was just, we've got to get this job done, and we've got to get it done before the 10th over.
Yeah.
And it was so calculated and so professional. And
so tactically astute. I'm sorry to break your word, but when I was watching it, I was like, it's clear, there's a clear plan. If this thing is back of a length, outside off stump, they were going to drive on the up, because usually that would be a very dangerous shot to play. But on that wicket, because it wasn't full and they had more time to react to a back of a length ball that allowed them to free their arms a little bit, there was such a clear tactical blueprint that they followed, which for me was really impressive.
But even the over when Khan brought himself on, I mean, he's probably one of the best in the world.
Yeah.
And that was they needed something magical from him, like a double hat trick.
Yeah.
Okay. And he bowled to Reza, and he was pumped. Okay. Yeah. And it was the stare down, and it was the throw back at the keeper, it was the throw at the stumps. And
Nokia had set the fire in him.
And all Reza did was a bit of gardening, kind of looked at him and then just basically hit him over extra cover and said, okay, bowl up, you know. Yeah. And from there it was just, okay, let's finish this thing within 9 overs or whatever. And it just, like you said, it just looked like there was a plan from the outset. There was no panic. And it was calculated, and it was kind of in keeping with the way they've played throughout this World Cup. That's 8 successive victories. I mean, you alluded me to the stat. Markram, when he won the World Cup with Rabada and his team in 2014, that's the Under-19 World Cup. Yeah. They're also wearing a lot of yellow in that final.
Yeah.
There's
something, yeah.
Yeah, he won 7 out of 7 there. He captained them, the senior side, for 2 matches at the
2023 ODI World Cup.
And he won both.
2 from 2,
yeah. And then he's 8 from 8 now. So he's 17 from 17 as a captain. That's not too shabby, okay? So, and has done very well with in the SA20, winning back-to-back, the second one as a captain.
Yeah.
So it really has been his coming of age a decade after everyone looked at him and said, Under-19 World Cup winning captain, both him and Rabada, born after 1994, democracy, the first new South Africans, rainbow South Africans. And it's taken a decade to get to this point that we're in another final, and the 2 guys at the fore of that are Markram and Rabada. And when it was needed most, they kind of stood up the most. And like you say, you know, people are looking at the stats and they're looking at strike rates. You've got to contextualize it, because you look at everyone in this tournament. You look at how Kohli, who knows what he does today, but if they play, but how he has struggled, how some of the top batsmen have struggled, with the odd exception of a Rohit getting a 92, or Butler getting off and having a blast, Quinny a couple of games. But this has been a struggle. There's been more ducks in this World Cup than at any T20 World Cup previously.
Yeah.
And it's been one dominated by bowlers and by very strategic thinking captains. And I mean, you got a great little message from H.D. Ackerman, one of my favorite analysts, very good player in his day, where he spoke about Markram's captaincy and complimented and said it's the first time he's seen post the Graham Smith, pre that the Hansie Cronje era, where it just looks like there's a top dog in charge of the side.
Yeah.
And it's his way, but it's in a very understated way.
Right. So something you raised there, I mean, we've been lavishing our praise of Aiden Markram, but I was very critical of Rob Walter at the 2023 ODI World Cup, especially after they lost to the Netherlands. And I think that was a legitimate criticism. But how much praise do we apportion to Walter versus Markram?
Look, I think equal on different fronts. One thing that this side hasn't done, either through their coach or through the captain, is speak a lot publicly. I also find that he's
even in the post-match today, Markram was so understated.
But you're not finding that Walter's on the front page, back page, taking all the digital social media column inches. Some people would not even know who the coach is, because he's been so insular in terms of his expressions. But when he picked, I think he learned a lot from that ODI World Cup. I think he also learned a lot to back himself. Like he said, back what he was brought in to do was win matches and win titles. And when he selected this one, there was a lot of critique around it. Did he get the balance right? There was obviously transformation issues. And he was quite emphatic that he was tasked with one thing: select a squad that you believe is capable of going to the World Cup and winning it for South Africa. And he said, and that's what I've done. Yeah. And
just
judge
for
me
context
on that.
for our viewers that may not know, Rod Walter has complete freedom to select the side that he wants to. There is no selection panel, so Walter selects the side that he wants to.
Yeah, and I mean the criticism when the original squad was announced was that it was lacking with black representation. and he felt it was the best squad of players that could go do a job for South Africa. They've played 8 games, they've won 8, they've used 12 players. And the only rotation has been forced by conditions where Bartman has either played as a seamer or Shamsi has played as an attacking spinner.
Yeah.
And that is an incredible feat, but it tells me they were so sure about who their best 11 was, who their squad of 12 players were, but knowing that they've had the backup should there be an injury.
Yeah.
And that this tournament was never going to be about, in their minds, a loss of form. It was like, we back you to come through at some stage. We spoke earlier in the week, Reza, do they back him, don't they back him? You said, I don't think it's even a question.
Yeah.
He's going to be backed.
Yeah.
He's going to open the batting, and he will come good when it happens. We spoke earlier when they were in New York. Rabada, is he that interested in being there? They knew when he needed to take wickets, he would.
Yeah.
So I felt the praise then is to the selector, which is Rob Walter, that he knew and identified a 12-strong playing group with able replacements that could go and win in any kind of conditions. And he's playing in a final on Saturday. And as we know, finals are lotto. Anything can happen. So, yeah, as much as we praise Markram, you got to praise the guy who appointed him, gave him the captaincy, but then also selected the players that he takes in with him. So I think every bit of praise is justified. And again, if you look at all their performances, there's not been one singular individual that's done it for them. This team hasn't been, if we didn't have Quinny de Kock there, we'd be finished.
Yeah.
If we didn't have Norkia there, we'd be finished. Everyone has chipped in at a stage and done something quite special in a game to get us over the line every time. And I mean, even Markram's comments like, look, we hope this was a little bit easier for you guys back home because I know the whole of South Africa was watching and we've kept it close. But I think those were the great appreciation of the tracks that they've been playing on, having context to other teams that are playing in there. Also knew that chasing 56, like you say, 80 plus, it could have been a very different ball game. 56 was just enough to give us a bit of breathing space if we started well.
Yeah.
And we did, and it was a very professional, consummate performance to get us over the line. But I just loved the reaction afterwards, like the way they banded together on the side of the field.
That was awesome.
And it's natural, you know, it's not contrived. It's not for the cameras. And it's like, there seems to, I go back to the whole thing with the Springboks. Hulle weet nie wat ons weet nie. You know, that kind of thing. They don't know what we know. Yeah. Internally, there's been a belief in this side. I saw the clips come out when they won the last game of them walking into the change room. You don't fake that.
Yeah.
It's not something that's manufactured, put together for the purposes of people to see. And what we haven't seen from Proteas in the past years, for whatever reason, we haven't really seen behind the scenes the care that there is, the love that there is, the desire to be successful. And this team from the outset has shown it, and especially arriving at the World Cup on the back of a 3-0 series defeat to the Windies. I think also people are like, why are they even bothering going? Right. They'll be lucky if they get to the West Indies again.
Yeah.
So, and Herschel Gibbs tweeted this morning as well, like, if they make it to the final, it's our time. And he said he kept on saying that, so let's hope it is. But I just think it's been wonderful for South African cricket, for the Proteas, and it's something that cricket in this country so desperately needed.
We'll obviously wrap the final after when we chat on Monday, but I wanted to close by speaking about what you know, like just broadly would consider success for this Proteas team. I know we touched on it a little bit in the last game, and I've got no doubts that whoever South Africa play in the final, whether it be India or England, that they would be more than competitive. They've beaten England already, and India, in my view, would be a tough ask, but they're more than capable of beating India. But that's neither here nor there, because we will analyze that game based on the context that unfolds on Saturday. But I have been seeing across social media, the perception of this team is completely shifted. I mean, one of my favorite podcasts is the Aussie Boys, the Great Cricketer. The way they've spoken about this Proteas team, and I mean, there's some it's got a comedic kind of base there, and they take the piss a lot. But when they've transitioned to like a more like serious kind of sober analysis, the way they've spoken about this Proteas team has been glowing terms. Stephen Fleming on Cricket Info the other day spoke about this team having something, and Michael Vaughan, same thing. In fact, he said that this Proteas team is already a success based on what they've achieved in this tournament, and how hard it's been for them to get to this point, playing on those wickets in New York, and then coming to the West Indies and playing on really tricky tracks there as well to get to this point, beating the defending champions. And so when I look at this team, and this is not to make excuses for the Proteas prior to them playing in a final, we'll still have to be fair around their performance in that final. But just speaking broadly, when I look at this team, I haven't felt this way about the Proteas team in a long time. And I'm a journalist, and obviously there's the dimension that we've got to be objective, But you can't deny that the national team, if you invested in it, gives you a feeling. I haven't felt this way about the Proteas team in a long time. I've gotten up for both the Afghanistan game and who did we play before that? I'm lost now.
The Windies.
Yeah, and the Windies game, not out of professional duty, but because I was invested. I wanted to cover the game. I wanted to be the one writing the match report or the analysis post-game, because there's something different about this team. And for me, that constitutes a success.
And there's been something old school for me about getting up at 2:30 in the morning, which you're not going to bed, and watching a national team playing in a World Cup in a competition. It reminded me a bit of watching the old Test matches at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
South Africa played New Zealand down under, and something quite pure about it. It's not 9 a.m. in the morning. It's not like 3 p.m. in the afternoon, glitz and glamour. It's kind of like a slog.
Yeah.
So the slog of getting up, tuning in, and then deciding, bleary-eyed, what am I going to do with my day?
Yeah.
How am I going to get through my day? It's kind of been how they've got through it.
Yeah.
It's been a slog. It's kind of been hard work. It's been a grind. So, yeah, I just think... And there's so many things that they've achieved while they've been over there that have gone under the radar. I mean, Quinny de Kock, first ever keeper to more than 100 dismissals in T20s. Nokia, 50 ODI wickets now for South Africa, the fourth one to do it. Where previously those would be the headlines.
Yeah.
In a potential defeat. Now it's like those personal landmarks are so dismissed because the collective is so strong. Like we keep on saying there's an appreciation for the 20 not out, for the one big wicket taking over, for a 4 that was turned down to a 2, for a catch that shouldn't have been taken. And it's really like a side that has gone in so unheralded. But with players good enough to do the business, but that there was this conscious decision that we go as a collective, and we win as a collective, or we fall as a collective.
Yeah.
And I go back to that non-playing squad members also, the due that must be given them, because for them to be there for the last month, not get a game, because it's never really allowed for, say, everything's cleared, everything's covered, go and play. Every game was pretty much a final, a playoff game from that first one. They had to keep on winning to get through. What they've contributed to the side must be massive.
Massive. To
be there and also not be playing. A Bartman to be so good early on, but understand why he's not playing. A Shamsi to know they've opted in a different type of spinner to give balance to their attack. It's not an indictment of his play. So I really, I just think it's been fantastic. That's down to the coach, the captain. I think they, whether it was, I don't think it's stumbled upon, but the appointment of Walter and then his appointment of Wani Markram as his captain. All great teams have a very good coach-captain kind of relationship. And they feed off each other. But this is the most un-South African type of leadership we've seen, because it's so below the radar. It's so devoid of the cameras, of the headlines. And it's just allowed those personalities to come to the fore in the team, but at their own pace.
Yeah.
And like Miller knows if he doesn't come off, Stubbs is coming off.
Yeah.
Klaassen knows he's got to do it today.
Yeah.
Rabada knows when he comes in. Janssen, slow start, but just he's come through in the last couple of matches
Yeah.
again. But there's just seemed to be this inevitability among them that one of us has to do it today. And if one of us keeps on doing it, in the big moment, we'll be winning. And that was a hallmark of the great Australian sides.
Yeah, absolutely.
Under Steve Waugh, Mark Taylor, and that was, if it wasn't McGrath, it was going to be Warren. If it wasn't Hayden, it was going to be someone else.
Gilchrist.
Yeah. There was always someone who was going to come and make a big play. And for the first time, I've seen this as opposed to previous South African teams that have like some of the best players in the world individually. On the biggest moments, you felt they didn't actually kind of put it together and come off, and then they all fell collectively. So yeah, I've loved it. I think it's a massive success. I mean, obviously you want that gold medal around your neck, but I liken it a lot to AFCON when we saw Bafana go there, and how I grew to love that team during the event as well. Nationally invested in it, and I think it was the same with the Springboks 2019 and then into 2023. There was a national investment from people, because of the way they played, the fight they showed, the character.
Yeah, I was going to say to you, I think what resonates with the people is the nature of the performances, because South Africans see themselves in those performances.
Yeah, and it's it's an extension of their day-to-day battles and the triumph over adversity.
Yeah.
And that we are a nation. We are a nation that can stick together. I mean, and it's come at a time where you look at what's happening politically and a first ever national government unity, and it's been done calmly. The voting process was peaceful, which is so out of kilter with when you've looked at other kind of liberation movements that have lost ground in the African continent and globally. So there's just been this sense of change, a sense of solution finding, and it gets displayed on a sporting field, theatre of dreams, and in the West Indies. The West Indies, where we had a lot of heartache when we went there for the first time in 1992, could that be where it all comes together for us on the beautiful islands?
And I hope it does, and we'll be there to celebrate the Proteas if that happens, or to share our commiserations if it doesn't. It's always been a pleasure talking to you, and we'll reconvene on Monday to either celebrate or cry together.
Hopefully as champions of the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Six. Watch out in the crowd. It's coming your way. Bang, bang, 6-6. Fabulous innings, fabulous game. Fantastic tournament.